Alrighty guys, Scotland versus Australia. First game of the Autumn Nations that I've been able to watch anyway. We did have Japan, New Zealand on very early this morning. It was like 6 a.m. over here. There was no coverage, unfortunately, in the UK on like Amazon for me, so I haven't been able to watch that one. Looks like it was a corker of a game, but this one as well, living up to expectancies. We thought this one was going to be close. The final score, 1 point separating it. I think in the preview video I gave a prediction of Australia to win by 2, so hey, that's pretty close. I'm pretty chuffed with how close I got in that prediction. But yeah, very close game. Of course, in these review videos, we'll go over the game, the highlights, the scores, some special stats, taking a look at what went on during the first half, and then finally what happened by full time. And as always, I welcome you guys to drop down in the comment section your thoughts on the game, as it's really nice to see what other people thought of the game along the way. So starting out with the first half then, very slow in terms of scoring, not a lot of stuff going on in terms of the points ball, but we had an incredibly exciting start from the kickoff. We had a solid 3 minutes of live open play, both teams going for it, kicking over the top. Scotland took on a bit more of a kicking attitude in this first half, whereas Australia are actually using passing, trying to use the players to move it up the pitch for them. But it was a really exciting start. I really hoped we would get to see that for a full 80 minutes. It didn't really pan out that way, unfortunately. Australia actually had 2 opportunities to potentially score a try within the first 10 minutes. They really wanted to try and take this game by the scruff of the neck if they could. Scotland defence, though, on their own try line looking very good. We had one grower kick go through, was shut down by the fullback, and then another one, a jackal going over from Schoeman, I believe, in that first 10 minutes. Anyway, there were so many jackal penalties going on in this game. Hard to keep track of who was doing what, but very good discipline from Scotland in that opening 10. Eventually, the first try did come in, actually came for Ollie Smith, which was really nice to see from him. I did say we were looking forward to seeing him play this fullback, no hog this week, so, great opportunity to come in, and what a try it was. Off the back of a line out, Scotland tried to move one way, they decided to switch it back on the inside. Tui Pelotu holding up some of the defenders. Little pop pass, go to Kinghorn, pop pass again. Sees Ollie Smith run through, beats 3 defenders, just goes himself. Nothing going to stop him from there. Superb try for him. Conversion was missed by Kinghorn. Not a really difficult place for a conversion, to be fair, but it did take them to that 5-0 lead very early in that first half. A few minutes later, the scoreboard did close up just a little bit. We saw Bernard Foley getting his penalty over in the 15th minute. This was Schoeman being offside and blocking a clear out. Now, this is something we'll talk about a lot more as we go throughout this game. Silly penalties coming in from Scotland really hindered them in this game an awful lot. Just silly things not needed to be doing. This was probably one of the first ones where we had Schoeman just standing completely on the wrong side, stopping anyone from getting involved with the ball. You already had the jackal, no reason to be in the way. So they brought it back to 5-3. So Scotland still holding out that lead. And about this time, we really got to feel the crowd in Murrayfield getting a bit quiet around that 20-minute mark. And up to this point, although we spoke a little bit about Scotland scoring points, really Australia looked to be on the offensive for the first 20 minutes. A lot of the open play running, some of the sparks of excitement in this game, really most of it coming from Australia. So at this point, the crowd getting a bit quiet, you felt like it was dropping down a little bit. We had to wait all the way until about the 25th minute. So we really got to see Scotland trying to build an attack. They had a solid 5 minute of attack leading up to that half-hour marker. I got noted down here, it was just all Scotland attack. They turned down 2 easy penalties at this point. They were right in front of the post, and given where the scoreboard ends up in this game, I think they might be ruining those decisions to not go for those early 3 points there. Did have the opportunity to score some tries. First one went a bit wrong for them. The ball passed out wide. Tui Pelotu dropping the ball. Final man there. Maybe would have got stopped on the wing, but I would have maybe had my money on him scoring that try, but did drop the ball just before the try line, so didn't get that one. And a second opportunity coming in, bit of white line fever, the forwards diving over in the pick and go, get over the try line, but ball held up, and then of course you're 40 metres back down the other end of the field from the dropout. So I feel like we're needing to see teams adapt to that rule a bit more. So many teams now we see just diving over for that try, get held up and completely ruin their own attack. It's a real shame. Hopefully that's something we'll see more in the future teams develop on a little bit. After not coming away with any points then, you really wanted to see Scotland get back on the front foot, and it just didn't go that way. Scotland's discipline just began to get worse and worse. Compound penalties kicking in. We did see over the space of about 5 minutes, 3 penalties on the bounce, 1 from open play, 1 from a line out, and 1 from more. See Scotland lose 70 metres just effortlessly, puts them all the way back. They did have to deal then with a 5-meter maul, which actually they dealt with pretty well. They did manage to sort it out quite well. They managed to get the turnover again, clear the ball. Australia went back on the attack, and finally in that 40th minute, Scotland did give away a penalty. Now, final minute, just going at half-time at top. Australia making the right decision, and Foley getting another one. So we go in at half-time. Australia in the lead, and from feeling the game out, I would probably say worthy. I think I'd probably say in that first half Australia deserved to be on top, but the scoreboard doesn't really reflect how much was going on each side of it. So they got there eventually, but Scotland holding out the lead for a good portion of that first half. In terms of the half-time notes then, I did say that Australia certainly looked more in control, but not managing that last 10%. It was something we did speak about in the Rugby Championship. We did see this quite a lot from Australia, getting all the way to the line and just trying too hard to make something happen, rather than willing to go through 8, 9, 10, 15 phases. They're desperate to score a try within 3. You know, you don't need to push it for the line, and that's where a couple of their mistakes come in, with them not actually getting a try in this first half. Scotland just not having time with possession at this point. They were having a couple of counter-attacks, but a lot of the possession they did have was kicked away within about 3-4 phases. They just kicked it away, box kick, trying to clear their own line, attempting 50-22s. They didn't really pan out in this first half, so didn't really have a lot of time on the ball to get the crowd excited, get themselves into this game. And then finally, discipline, still an issue for Scotland, I wrote down here. By the end of it, I'll talk about both teams. But I did say so many unnecessary penalties coming in, but they were saved by brilliant defence on their own try line, getting those jackal penalties. Stats-wise, Amazon disagree with me in terms of the coverage. They said there was 6 penalties each in that first half. It really didn't feel like it, but I think it's more because of the turnover stat. Turnover stat 4-2 to Scotland. So I actually think it was more along the lines of that 4 of those 6 penalties from Australia came from jackal penalties, whereas the Scotland 6 actually were really coming from open live play, own mistake sort of deal. Possession and territory, both in favour of Scotland. Surprisingly, didn't really feel like it. Scotland 54%, territory 57%. So, you know, winning both those battles, but it really just didn't feel like that at all, actually watching it live. But handling errors, like I said, that final 10% letting Australia down. Handling errors 1 to Scotland, 4 to Australia. So that's why they're not really helping themselves get over that try line. On to the second half then, where we didn't have to wait long till the next try coming in. 2 minutes in, Blair Kinghorn getting himself over for one of the most bizarre tries I think I've ever seen. This actually came off the back of an Australian attack. They actually had the ball in possession. The ball was dropped as the pass chain was going along. And then Australia, not wanting to give away the scrum, just stood there and waved their hands in the air to say, we're not touching it, we're not touching it. That just allowed Blair Kinghorn to kick the ball up the field, grab a kick, bit of footy skills going on. Got the pace. Blair Kinghorn, of course, playing fullback, playing wing in his past. He's absolutely ready to do this, even though he's playing 10 this week. Runs the length of the field and scores a try. Don't know why you wouldn't just dive on the ball, but hey, he's got the speed for it. Really nice try from him, to be fair. Hard to control a ball that far up the pitch, but nice from him. Did get that conversion. So Scotland, 2 minutes in, take a 12-6 lead into this first half. So looking much better from a Scotland perspective anyway. The next 20 minutes or so, a little bit scrappy, a lot of penalties, just sort of exchanging. One team would get a penalty, move up the field, then concede one, and it would just happen in reverse and reverse. No one really sort of grasping the game. Eventually, the penalty did come in for some more points for Scotland. This was 2 offside penalties on the bounce from Australia, and they just went for the 3 points. Probably the successful move there, did get the 3. So it takes Scotland to that final score of 15, while we still see Australia down on 6. So a 9-point lead, and even though Scotland aren't really dictating the game, the points lead is where you want to be at. Just keep taking those 3s, keep them in the lead. Only a couple of minutes later, it did look like Scotland potentially were going to score another lovely try. A little breakaway from Duhan van der Merwe going down that left wing. If it wasn't for an unbelievable try-saving tackle from Bernard Foley, I don't want to tackle van der Merwe. Just threw his body on the line, did manage to stop him, and Tate McDermott got down over there where he got cleared out by Glenn Young. Now, this clear out looked ferocious when we were watching it live. We did go back and review it, and eventually a yellow card was awarded for this one. Now, normally when I talk about these head injuries, when we get them involved in terms of rucks, normally I actually talk about it the other way around. Players normally get red carded, and I say, oh, I feel like that was a bit harsh. This one, I actually feel the other way. He got yellow carded for this one. For me, I don't really understand how these rules play out anymore. For me, I would have given that as a red card all day long. I'm sure people will disagree with me. But for me, Tate McDermott there was going for the hands on the ball. He looked up. You've got, I don't even know how tall he is, 6'6", running at full speed. and didn't even necessarily clear out. He actually launched himself. He came off his feet and just drove through him, direct contact to the head. And the mitigating circumstance was that it was his bicep that hit him rather than his shoulder. I don't know if I'd want to be hit by a bicep at about 18 miles an hour, but apparently that's a yellow card for me. I think that's dangerous play. I would have given a red card for that one, but I'm sort of glad it didn't because I feel like it might have ruined the game a bit. I'm sort of glad it ended up being a yellow card, but in terms of World Rugby rules, they're a little bit all over the place for me. Australia did make the most of this yellow card, though, getting themselves a try. We see James Slipper going over, not a man who scores a lot of tries for Australia, considering his cap count, but just 5 minutes of consistent pressure. The man down. Scotland actually did really well defensively in this. They're just not committing men into the breakdown situations, giving themselves the extra defenders. I thought it was really well managed by them during this section, but eventually the big boys did manage to find their way over. Another successful conversion from Foley sees them draw it very, very close. Scotland 15, Australia 13, and then we just get to see this game just turn into penalty counts, basically, across the board. So many penalties in this last sort of 15 minutes. The next scoring point actually came in not until the 70th minute, considering how many penalties there were. Watson offside of the back of the maul. I thought this one was harsh. I really feel like Australia had the ball out and he had every right to be there. Referee saw it differently on this one. Penalty success sees Australia take that lead to 16 points to 15. We have a final 10 minutes. Again, scrappy. It's a lot of penalties, a lot of things messing up. It's a real shame because this game could have been something amazing considering what we saw in those first 3 minutes. But it did look, for all accounts, that Scotland were maybe going to be able to fight back. I thought the management from Australia at this point was really good. They pinned Scotland back. They weren't just desperately trying to go for penalties. They weren't looking for the drop goal. They just pinned them back in the 22, believe in their own defence, hold it out. But penalties slipping away. An illegal knock-on coming in from Paisami gave them the early exit. And something I want to touch on real quickly. When we're talking about that yellow and red card situation there was talk about whether or not Paisami should have got a yellow card for this intentional knock-on. Now, the reason it wasn't a yellow card they gave it is Kellaway was stood outside him, so covering that outside man. But had he not been there, it would have been a yellow card. And I really feel like there needs to be something looked at in terms of these rules now. That a yellow card for an intentional knock-on is the same as a 6'6" guy flying at full speed into someone's head. I don't know how they can be classed as the same thing. I feel if you gave that as a yellow card, you'd have to have given that other one as a red card. Otherwise, it feels like the danger factor to a player's health compared to the impact on a game for both to be a yellow card. I don't think that's equal. But I'm sure people disagree. Feel free to drop down your thoughts in the comment section. But from this, compound issues then. Again, like we've spoken about a few times in this, Paisami's penalty led them to the halfway line. Taniela Tupou came on, made a big impact in the game earlier on. Gave away a penalty just inside Australia's half on his knees, jackling the ball. Just silly things. Don't need to go for it. They weren't under massive pressure, but went for it, gave the penalty to Blair Kinghorn in the 79th minute to potentially take the win, and unfortunately was missed by Kinghorn. So at full time, 16 points to 15 to the Wallabies. A hard-fought match. Could have gone either way, to be honest. A really, really close game. In terms of final notes then, I said discipline from both sides pretty poor in this game. Compound issues was a huge factor in how this game went in terms of scoring. The Aussie set piece looked better to me, even though not necessarily dictating the game through it. I thought it just looked generally better in the positions they were in. And then finally, Scotland Mayru turning down those earlier kicking efforts. Like we said earlier on, 2 opportunities for 3 points. There it is, a missed conversion and a missed penalty. There it is. Maybe the opportunity's there to have a different kick taker coming in next week if anyone's able to. Might be something they look at. Man of the match, James Slipper. I feel like this might be... I don't know if I would have given it to James Slipper. I understood the rules. I'm not even sure who I would pick from Australia. I think from Scotland perspective, Blair Kinghorn probably would have been my man of the match. From an Australian perspective, really tough. Really tough, to be fair. I don't know if anyone actually stood out. I think Tate McDermott had a really good first half, but then went quiet until Nick White came on, made a big impact himself. Taniela Tupou had a big impact in that second game, but James Slipper getting that try that really pushed the scoreboard back up. I see why they went for it. Again, stats taken from Amazon for these final stats then. Possession 55% to Scotland, territory 59% to Scotland. So again, Scotland winning both the possession and the territory. And I only feel like for certain times in this game, they actually looked like they had that positive. So really surprising to see that. Final penalty count, considering how much I've talked about Scotland's ill discipline. Scotland gave away 14 penalties, Australia gave away 15. So really felt like Scotland were giving away far more penalties than Australia. Australia. Again, I think a lot of them coming from jackal penalties against Australia, maybe than live play and actual mistakes going on. Maybe that's what shifts that in my own brain for me. But then finally, yeah, those turnovers, 10 turnovers for Scotland compared to Australia's 4, which is what held them out so close. But a real tight game. What a way to start off the Autumn Nations for myself. But of course, guys, drop it down in the comment section your thoughts on the game. Looking forward to see what you guys have to say. If you've enjoyed this style of video today, remember to subscribe to the channel. It's free, it's easy. Click the red button down there. It's super duper useful. Of course, we will be having the Super Brew results coming out on Monday's video, where we'll take a look at the world rankings as well. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you all next time. Bye bye.